Hey everyone, welcome back. So in our last video, we built our update case element inside of our flow, and we ran the debugger, and we saw that everything was working when a primary contact was present for the account that the case is related to. We then spent some time kind of talking about the four major test scenarios that every good flow builder thinks about, and those are the positive test case, the negative test case, the null test case, and the bulk test case. Specifically, we focused a little bit more on the negative scenario at the end of our last video. And so what we were thinking about is if our flow tries to find a primary contact and it doesn't find it, so either there are no contacts on the count at all, or there are contacts but none of them has the primary contact pick list filled in, then what should we do? And we were kind of taking a guess, what Sherry might like. And so whenever that happens in the real world, always go back to your business user or whoever kind of asked you to develop this flow and see what they would like. When I was first getting started in my career as a flow builder, I felt nervous about doing that. I was always like, well, what if they think I'm stupid or they don't know? they think I don't know what I'm doing. And so don't feel that way. Your business users will always appreciate you coming back to them and being like, hey, I thought of this scenario where our current logic might not work. What do you want to do here in this situation? They'll always appreciate that, and it's a really good proactive development approach. So we're going to pretend that we did that in this video. And so we decided that it would be best to go check with Sherry about what the flow should do. And so we sent her a message. We said, hey, Sherry, the flow's development is coming along great. We just have a question as to what should happen when we go to look for a primary contact and we don't find one. What should the flow do? And so Sherry was able to clarify that for us. And she says, well, if there's no contacts on the account, then just go ahead and create the case. And if there is a contact on the account, then what we'll need to do is try to find which contact was created first in Salesforce. So generally, the oldest contact record in Salesforce is the one that we'll want to pick. So if the flow could find that, then that would be great. And we can use that one on the case instead. So that was really helpful that Sherry, told us that. And so we said, okay, no problem. And that's what we're going to build in this video right now. So let's dive in with building out what Sherry requested. And that's the logic that if we don't find a primary contact, then go get the oldest contact, whatever that is, for the account in Salesforce. So I'm going to drag the update case elements kind of to the side here, and I'm going to click the connecting line in between the two and press the delete key on my keyboard to kind of separate those two, because we're going to need to take some extra steps between finding our primary contact and updating the case. I think the freeform layout is a little bit better at rearranging the canvas like this. It can be a little bit trickier with the auto layout. So if you're in the auto layout and you want to switch to follow this part, feel free. I'm just going to press save. I always save after most changes so that I don't lose my work. But now that that's done, we need to kind of think about what the flow should do in order to find the primary or the oldest contact. So the flow will kick off when a case is created, and we'll go and look for the primary contact. And now we need to do a check. We need to say, hey, did you find that primary contact? And that will tell us, if yes, we can go update the case because we're good to go. If no, then it's time to go look up the oldest contact in Salesforce. So in order to do that check, that if-then logic, we're going to drag this decision to the canvas. And that's something that might come up on an administrator exam, is what does the decision element do? You could really just think of it as an if-then statement inside your flow. And I'm going to back out of this real quick, and I just want to highlight the text box that the flow canvas has, and it says you can create paths for the flow to take based on specified conditions. And so if you have different conditions or different routes that you want your flow to take, that's what the decision element is for. And that's what we're going to use it for here. So the first thing that we need to do is name our decision. And I usually name my decisions in the form of a question. So you can change that over time if you don't like that convention, but that's typically what I do. And so I'll just call it primary contact found with a question mark. That way, when you look at it on the canvas, you can kind of tell that the decision is checking if we actually found the primary contact. And then for my label, I typically say yes. And then, you could add a space and say yes found. I'll just leave it as yes for now. And then what we need to do here in our outcome, which is where I was labeling the yes, is I need to define what is true inside the flow builder that makes that outcome the one we want to execute. And so you can use any of the variables or different elements inside your flow to help you define your decision. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click the resources section, and I'm going to select the record single variable from our get primary contact. And again, you can see how useful using a get element is, because it will populate all these field values if they were found by looking up the contact record. So I'll click that open, and then I'm just going to scroll down, and I'm just going to select the ID field. So by clicking this, our resource will say get primary contact.id, and if our get records was successful, that value will be populated. So what I can do then is I can just change the operator to is null, and I'll say false. And so that means that our primary contact, like our get records ran, it found the primary contact and it populated the ID. So if the ID is null, which means empty, and that is false, so if it's null, false, which means it has a value, then that means yes, we did find our primary contact. So I'll press done, and you'll see our decision gets added to the canvas. And now I can connect our get primary contacts to our decision, and then I can drag our decision to our update case. And the outcome we defined is selected here automatically. If you have multiple outcomes, they'll all populate or show up here. For now, we just have one, and that's the one that defaulted. So I'll press done, and I'll press save. And so now we have our check. We're checking, hey, did you find the primary contact? If we did, then we can just go update the case just as we did before. If we didn't, then we need to go find the oldest contact in Salesforce. And so that's going to be another get records, and I'll drag that to the canvas, and I'll just say get oldest contact. Now we're going to set this up in a very similar way to our get primary contact. So we're just going to look for an object of the contact type, and we'll make sure that the account ID equals the record for the case account ID. So that's pretty similar. And that's really all we need to enter here, because now we're looking for any contact at all associated with the account. And in order to find the oldest one, we'll need to sort the list. So when we're looking at all the contacts, we can find, you could imagine a list in your head, and each contact would be a row in the list. And we want to click the column almost that's like the created date column. And that's what this sort contact records allows us to do. So we can pick a sort order for the way Salesforce gets the contact records. And so it's kind of weird, but you have to pick ascending or descending first. I honestly never remember if the oldest date is descending or ascending. So I'm going to pick descending, and then I'll probably double check that on the internet in between the video, and then I'll come back and I'll let you know if we need to change it. But we're going to sort by created date. So you can see I picked ascending or descending order. And so then we're allowed to pick a different field, or pick a field on the contact record in order to go in that order. So when I pick created date here, what Salesforce will do is it will go look at every contact that meets our filter condition here, and then it will sort those records in order of whatever we define in the sort conditions here. So right now it's going to be in descending order by created date. And then it will store the record that's at the top of the list. And so that's why the sort order is really important. And that's why I'm going to double check if descending is the oldest, in terms of date. So which one was created last in the past, or ascending. So I need to figure that out. But at any rate, we'll set this up like so, and we'll press done. And then we'll just connect our decision element to our get oldest contact. And you can see that the default outcome just always goes down to the oldest contact. And so one final thing before we end the video is I'm going to open up the decision element. And I just want to show you again that this decision has different outcomes. So you can see that we defined one that's the yes outcome, But over on the left-hand side here, every decision comes with a default outcome. And that's what we selected. And you could think of this as like the no outcome when we don't find the primary contact. And the way a decision element works is it will try every outcome in order. So if I press this plus button, I could add multiple decisions. We're not actually going to set those up here, but I just wanted to show you that that was possible. And then if it tries to evaluate all your decision outcomes and none of them are true, then it will just execute the default outcome. So you don't have to connect your default outcome to anything, but in this case, we're going to use it because if we don't find a primary contact, then we want to go find the oldest contact. So we'll end the video there, but in the next video, we will continue by taking the next step after we find or do not find our oldest contact.